मुझे आवाज
Should
आपकी
I
थोड़ी
speak
कम आ रही है.
louder?
Sorry? Yeah.
Should I speak louder?
Yes, please do.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so let's get started. So I'm absolutely thrilled to welcome Nikhil. I'll read out Nikhil's intro from his book. I'll have to read it 5 times. I'll tell you why shortly. But Nikhil Gulati loves stories. I'm just reading from the book. So Nikhil Gulati's love stories that evoke wonder and inspire compassion. He's written an illustrated graphic works for Puffin and Pratham books, in addition to writing and illustrating a mini graphic novel on the history of Golconda and several short comics on various themes. The People of the Indus is his first long form work. He's a graduate of the University of Texas, Austin, and IIM Ahmedabad, Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad. His work can be found at www.oddballcomics.in. And the reason I said that I'll have to read it 5 times is because I have to show you guys this, because I have 5 copies of his book. And I'll tell you why I have 5 copies of his book is because this makes a perfect gift for anybody. You can gift it to anybody, any gender, any age above 13, I think is what the book says. But I've actually got 5 copies just today. The other thing I want to tell you is I did not order them from Amazon because I will not. I ordered them from the local bookstore. I called them and I said, I want this book. They said it'll take 3 days. I said, I have time. Okay. But I just wanted you guys to know, I think it's very important, A, that we should support authors with books that we really love, and B, we should not do it on Amazon if we can help it. Bezos has enough money. We can give our money to somebody else, somebody who needs it more than him, right? Okay, cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Nikhil agrees. All right. So it's fabulous to have you. And as always, yours is a very fascinating journey. Just so you all know, I've known Nikhil since about 2017 or maybe even earlier, probably 15, 16-ish. That's when you moved to the neck of the woods?
Yeah, 2016 I moved there.
Yeah. So I think we've known you guys ever since that time. So tell us how it all started. I mean, your background is very traditional till college. You did your engineering, you did your MBA, and then you stopped. So what happened? Where did this whole switch happen?
Where did it all go wrong?
You have to speak louder, I think. Yeah.
You want to know where it all went wrong?
Or went right? But tell us about the journey.
That future will tell us. On the surface, I did all the traditional computer science, engineering, and then an MBA. But I think inside me there was something brewing from a long time. I think since I was fairly young, like in my early teens, I understood that this idea of jobs doesn't make sense. Something seems wrong about it. Something about it just didn't feel right to me. And I used to wonder, like, what is this really? Is this what we are all supposed to do? Like, who wrote this script and why is it like this? So I had that in my mind always. It's just that I think the sense of possibility was not there. Like this idea that if not that, then what else? That kind of that clarity was not there, and it took a long time for that to come. And I remember that even during my bachelor's, within the first semester, I was feeling that I wanted to do something different. Like I'd always been drawn to the creative fields, and like for me, creative does not mean painting and music. Creative fields for me means pretty much anything where you're creating something new, and it can be even in tech or whatever. It can be in engineering too. You can be creative. So it wasn't necessarily that I was thinking that art and painting and music, but I knew that there was something else that was that itch was there to like create things. And I even did a master's in computer science before I even did my MBA. And there, I think the idea was because I was just so averse to doing jobs. After my bachelor's, I was like, if I do a master's, you'll pay me to do a master's? Really? I can do that? I can just stay in college? And apparently it was true. So I was like, fine, I'll just stay in college. And so I decided to do a master's. And I think during the masters is when something sort of started opening up, at least. Like I started
So this was
seeing
the MBA
people.
or the tech.
No, this was my MTech. Yeah,
Okay.
this was here in the US, in Austin. I think it was at that time that I saw that, like, some of my professors, for example, were just, they were top of their fields. They were doing things that I personally had no interest in. Even things like theoretical computer science, or just some like very esoteric mathematical thing that they were pursuing. But when they spoke about their stuff, like, their passion used to rub off on me, and I used to get interested in their topics just because of, how they used to speak about it. So that kind of like told me that I wanted to do something, at least with something approaching that level of interest and passion. And when I had worked in jobs, I kind of never, it didn't even approach close to that level. I used to feel like I'm using pretty much like 5% of my brain, and I used to sit there for 8-10 hours, and I used to feel like I'm just wasting my time. But anyway, still, this idea of comics, making comics, never came. Even though, like, since I was a kid, I used to really enjoy drawing, and it was one of the things I used to do that nobody really asked me to do. So I knew that, like, I was doing it for my own sake, from a very young age. um After my masters in the US, I worked for a couple of years in a tech job, saved up some money, then decided I'm going to move back to India. And after I moved back to India, I was traveling around for a year and a half. I was volunteering in a small village in Rajasthan, just pretty much not doing anything quote unquote productive, hoping that in that time I'll find something interesting to do. But at the end of it, I did not. So I decided, okay, I'll just do an MBA. I'll be that good Indian kid. I'll just do an MBA and hope that, some nice, interesting job will just land in my lap, and I'll be forever more engaged and entertained. Um,
And so
but
very casually
during
you
my MBA,
decided to
that
do your
wasn't.
MBA from IIM Ahmedabad.
I think that was luck. Yeah.
No, you
I
don't get
remember
into
in
IIM
my.
Ahmedabad through luck, man. I mean,
No,
let's
no,
be
no.
clear about
There is a
that.
lot of luck. No,
Yeah.
no, there is a lot of luck. There's some hard work, but I remember guessing at least 3 or 4 questions on that entrance exam, like absolutely guessing. Those could have gone either way, but anyway, whatever. Yeah, somehow I got in, um, and I think it was during that I decided, this is not working. These jobs are just the same, heartless. Just sell this thing without thinking about why the world needs this thing, and how to sell it. None of that was being asked. Just the thing was just sell it. So I was, that's when I kind of started on this thing towards comics, where um, I was thinking of making a library of comics. Like, I wanted to start a library of comics, and I started collecting comics for my library. But I pretty soon realized that there's only American, Japanese, and some European comics. There's no like really good Indian comics apart from like a handful, like less than 10 that I could count. And that's when I felt that, okay, maybe then I should become a publisher and like get writers and artists and get them to make comics. And then I realized that, well, if it's stories that I want to tell, then why are other writers going to write the stories that I want to tell? They're going to write the stories they want to tell. So then I thought, okay, I'll just write the stories and I'll get artists to draw them. And then so I started writing. And I remember, even after my MBA, I had taken up a job for a few months. And in 8 months of my job, during the meetings, I wrote the script for one graphic novel. It was literally written during the meetings because the meetings are so useless. But anyway, um, so then I started looking for artists, and the artists were just too expensive. And again, this at this point again, I did not have the belief that I can draw my own comics, even though I had been drawing for a while, and I had picked it up seriously for 1 or 2 years before this decision happened. But here I was lucky to find a mentor, and he told me, he's like, just forget about everything else, because I told him that, hey, listen, he was a professor at IIM, and I was in touch with him, and I told him, hey, listen, I want to do this, but I went around looking for artists and they're too expensive. So he was like, what do you want to do, like, in the ideal scenario? If the world was like perfect for you, what would you do? And the answer that came from like deep inside was very, very clear. That it was that if it was an ideal world, I would write my own comics and I would draw them also. So he told me, just start doing that. Just forget about everything else, just start doing it. And and I told him, I can't draw. My drawing skills are not good. It'll take me like a few years to get to the level where I can actually draw something professional. He said, nah, just don't think about it. Just do it. And he was also very generous in offering that if you finish a comic book, I'll give you some money to print like X number of copies. So I was like, yeah, sure. I had basically somebody offering to pay for a few hundred copies. So yeah, I decided to start, and that was a very short comic, like not very short, but it was about 60 pages, but I did it pretty fast.
So that
At
was
the end of
Golconda.
which that was Golconda. Yeah, there was a comic book on Golconda that I finished in a few months. At the end of which I was feeling a bit more confident, and I did a few short comics here and there, but then I decided, okay, I want to do a big solid project, and that's when I started on the Indus Valley, and I basically had no idea what I was getting into. Yeah, that's how I came to this book.
Well, it's here now. So this is how many pages? I'm just wondering.
This is total 190 some pages, but I
Okay.
think illustrated pages is around 165,
Yeah,
168,
correct,
something
correct.
like that.
Exactly, 165. Wow. So
Yeah.
that's a lot of work. And if you look at the interiors of these pages, they're like each page has got a lot of sheets, a lot of separate images. So there's a lot of intricacy and a lot of detail that's gone into each page. So it's not just कि एक frame में एक ही illustration है, यानी काफी सारे illustrations है. So there's a lot that's gone into it, and it's a fascinating read. It's a very nice story. So that's a wonderful story, Nikhil. Actually, मेरे सारे सवालों का जवाब तो तूने दे ही दिया है. But
Mm.
so once you were done, and how like with the first Golconda project, it was great that your professor was able to push things through. So you learned the entire craft on
Yeah.
your own. Was there any other support? Was there any other means by way which you were able to help and you were able to learn a little bit more?
Yeah. I think when I finished Golconda, I still didn't really know the craft. I don't think I even know it right now. But I think during the Indus book is when really uh really got deep into the weeds. Because that's when I had just moved to the mountains. That's when I was just starting on this project. I don't know if you remember, but one of the first times we had met, I had spoken about this
Yes,
idea
I
with
remember
you
that.
and
In fact, you
Vandita.
helped Anand
Yeah,
design his comic book cover, Nature Heroes,
yeah,
remember?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
Anand
yeah.
is
I
my son,
remember
and he
that.
wrote a comic when he was 9. He didn't know what he was doing. He still doesn't. But so Nikhil had encouraged him. You didn't do the art, but you had told
Yeah,
they had this conversation where he said, if you do this, I will do this.
I'd. Yeah,
But you
yeah,
have this
yeah,
barter kind of thing. But it was to encourage him
yeah.
to finish in a certain time frame. I remember that.
I told him that if you finish X number of pages, if you finish the whole story, then I'll help you design the cover. That's
Yeah,
all I had
correct.
told him. And then he did the illustration for the cover. I just basically colored it.
Yes,
And
yes,
yeah,
exactly. I don't
yeah, I
have the
remember that.
that book, otherwise I would have shown that also to you guys. Maybe I'll show it next time I'll
Yeah,
be in the mountains.
it's a lovely book. Yeah.
Yeah, it was good fun. He
And
hates his
I think
publisher.
it's,
That's me.
yeah, that's you.
Because
Okay.
वो we just did black and white photocopies in a photocopy shop, और एक photocopy में मक्खी आ गई. तो एक पेज है जिसमें सारा का सारा book है, then there is one fly on the page, and he still curses me for that. I mean, so anyway, that's a separate story. But yeah, okay. So you
Yeah.
were talking about learning, so that's how that went. So it was just
Yeah.
self-taught. You just kind of learned and figured it out
I
yourself.
mean, I did. So I did spend a lot of time learning the craft. Like I did especially for drawing. I looked at a lot of YouTube tutorials. I looked at a lot of books, and I also used to go to this weekly drawing things when I was in Hyderabad right after my MBA. So we had formed a group where every week we would meet and just do figure drawings, portrait drawings, and stuff like that.
Lovely.
And there were a few artists there that I used to get a lot of tips from. But actually, like the biggest tip that I got on this journey was from an artist whose work I really like, and he's an artist, comic book artist from Brazil, who had come to one of the comic cons. So I was at the comic con, I was hanging around there, and then at some point I found him sitting by himself. So I had taken all my sketchbooks, which I had finished in the last like few months over there. So I just went up to him and I showed him all my comics, and I was like, "Hey, I'm trying to." I mean, I showed him all my sketchbooks, and at that time, what I was doing was I was not yet making comics. I was just doing little illustrations. I was like, "Okay, I want to draw a face. I want to draw a guy sitting. I want to draw two people talking and stuff like that." So I was just doing some random practice drawings. So I took, and I had filled up sketchbooks of this. So I took those sketchbooks to him and I was like, "Hey, look at this. Can you give me some feedback? I'm trying to learn. What should I do? How should I go about it?" And then he asked me, he was like, what do you want to do?" I said, "I want to make comics." So he said, "So leave all of this. If you want to make comics, just start making comics. And what's going to happen is you're going to find out that there's a bunch of skills you need to make comics, not just being able to draw people and draw a room or whatever. There's going to be a lot more skills, like for example, how to design a whole page, how to design panels, how to make sure the story connects panel over panel, how to make sure you compose a story over several pages, over a whole book, for example. So just start making comics, and what's going to happen is when you start making them, you're going to find what's missing. Like you'll draw something and you'll realize, okay, this person is sitting in a chair, but the chair seems to be floating above the floor. So there's something wrong with your perspective. And when you see what's missing in your drawings, just go and learn that particular thing. And I think that thing really put me on the right path, because then it was almost like streamlined, you know. Like for example, if I'm drawing my pages and the panels don't seem to be connecting, like readers, people are having trouble following, okay, you're showing this in one panel and then what happened in between, I don't really get it. So I would understand, okay, that's something that I need to pay a little more attention to. And that, I think, really got me started.
So do you think the same thing will apply to writing stories also? Because even in art, like even if you're writing text, you're not writing a comic book. It's still,
Yeah.
you're still creating the scenes. You're not drawing them out, but you're creating
Yeah.
them with words, right?
Oh,
And sometimes
yeah,
when you're
absolutely.
looking at the story, you see that okay, something's off here or something's gone off here. So
Yeah.
I'm guessing that some of the same stuff will apply even for just non-comic writing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
So
Because it's the same. I mean, it's the same when you're creating anything. Like even if you were creating an app or something,
right,
it's you can keep thinking about it and trying to master and get the perfect idea first on paper before you even start building your start writing the first line of code.
right,
But I think it's probably better if you just start making the app and make something very simple, and then you put it out there in front of people.
right.
And so yeah, so the I remember that even with writing, so first I started writing the script before I, like for this Indus book. First I was doing, while I was doing the research, I started writing the script down. And I remember just noticing that like my sentences don't they don't make any sense. Like I'm not really clear in what I'm saying. Over a paragraph, my sentences don't seem to be flowing. The subject keeps flipping from one sentence to the other. And so like over a paragraph, you don't really know what's being talked about. Or it's a bit clunky. Like you just have to make that extra bit of effort to understand what's being said. And that makes writing, I mean, that makes it a bit harder to read, for example. But when I started writing, I started showing it to people and I started also paying attention. And I remember doing this exact thing, that once I had written a page, like I was writing a lot, but then I would go back after a couple of weeks to see what I had written 2 weeks back, and then it would all be a mess. It would be a jumble. I was like, what is happening here? And then I didn't know how to fix that. So what I did was I started going to other books that I liked a lot, which were, you know, in the kind of style that I wanted to write in. And then I would really pay attention to the details, like, okay, how is this person designing their paragraphs? Oh, it seems like they pick just one simple idea for each paragraph and talk only about that. Okay, I'll mimic that, I'll copy that. And then I would go back to my writing, rewrite. And there was a lot of, yeah, it's just a lot of writing and rewriting. I think I must have written at least 6 7x of what finally made it to the book,
Yeah,
maybe even more.
which is what we talk about in any case in all our workshops when we talk about editing.
Yeah.
But so Nikhil was also a little bit of the part of the history of Himalayan Writing Retreat, because when we were very early, तो हमारे retreats में कोई आता
Yeah.
नहीं था. So I mean, the fact was we didn't have much of a brand. People didn't know about us, so nobody would show up. And we had announced this fun retreat. It was our third event actually, the one that you had come for, Nikhil. So it was our
Yeah.
third event, and we had these 3 people who were coming who had paid. So we had to like fill it up. We had to like look respectable. Ki teen log hi aaye khali, it's not okay. So we had 2 other people. So I had called Nikhil also, and 2 of those people were coming from abroad. Right? There was
Hmm.
James and
Yeah.
I'm forgetting the girl's name now.
There's this girl, yeah.
So anyway, yeah. So the 2 of them were from the US. So we were like, we can't have just 3 people. It'll look like a very shoddy retreat. So we had called Nikhil, and he'd spent a week with us. So बहुत मस्ती करी थी हमने. I don't know if he learned anything, but I know we had a lot of fun.
That actually was a lot of fun. I think a lot of the things that we did there, like a lot of short exercises, gave me a lot of confidence.
Yeah.
Because I was like writing this book. I remember that time I brought like the first draft and I was showing it to Mariam and a
Right.
couple of other people over there. I was like, "What do you think?" And I remember having discussions about it. But the some of the short exercises that we did, just think of a character and do this and do that, and that kind of gave me the confidence that okay, even in short bits I can tell a little story, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
As at the end of the day, for me, it's really the storytelling that's important.
Yeah.
Like
It was
people,
Lauren. I think
if
her
you
name
can,
was Lauren. I'm trying to remember her
yeah,
name.
Lauren, that's right,
Lauren.
that's
Anyway.
right, that's
Yeah.
right.
So that was
Yeah,
good fun. But that's an aside.
yeah,
So before I open it out, we're already overdue, but I just want to ask one last question because I think that's something that will interest everybody. So the first, the Golconda comic was sort of self-published, and your professor helped you finance it and all of that. So now the second book, this one is like a piece of work, man. This is like hardbound. It's not even soft cover, and it's Penguin. So how do you make that jump? I mean, how did Penguin? How do you land this deal? It's awesome. It's great to see this, but I'm just wondering,
yeah.
was it easy? Did it fall in your lap? Did you have to run laps around a stadium? What did you do?
Actually, finding the publishers turned out to be not that difficult. It turned out to be easier than actually finishing the book. I think the biggest challenge was finishing the book that I didn't realize was gonna hit me somewhere like midway through the project. And dealing with that, those challenges was like way harder. And I think so when I was halfway through, I started kind of sending out feelers to publishers, and I spoke to a few, just sent out emails, sent a few pages, just a description of the book. And some of them showed some interest. They were like, "Huh, it looks interesting, but send us something when you have like more stuff finished, like more finished stuff. Send that to us." And a lot of them just never responded. Um, but there was one thing that I had in my mind that was like, whether I find a publisher or not, I'm going to finish this book. This book is happening no matter what. And so I just kept on going. And I think when I did manage to finish, and the challenges and stuff, maybe we can talk about a bit later. But once I did finish, I practically had a book like finished. And when I showed that to publishers, I think they were a lot more interested because if you get involved before the book is done, then there's a lot more work for a publisher to do with you, like with the editors and giving it a shape and deciding what's going to be in it and all that. Whereas when I handed them a finished book, and it helped that it was on a topic that has very few books on it and has zero comic books on it, Like in this format, there's basically nothing. And in India, in Indian history itself, there's very few comic books that are tackling Indian history in like a non-fiction format. So it helped that it was a bit eye-catchy in that sense. And and these were contacts like in the publishing industry that I had developed beforehand, because I was doing freelance work to kind of sustain myself. So I was like doing illustrations for children's books, and stuff like that, and doing some illustrations for other books. And so I knew, like, I had come in contact with some of these publishers already and editors. So I just sent it to them. And um, yeah, and then Penguin showed interest. And luckily, like that final bit was not that difficult, but it did take some preparation beforehand. Yeah, I can't hear you.
Landing
Still
any of the
can't
big
hear
five.
you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, now we can hear.
I was saying that's great because landing any of the big five means distribution. So it will show up at the airports, it will show up at the crosswords, it will show up at the
Yeah,
bookstores, and that does make a big difference. So lots of
yeah.
discovery can happen from there. Okay, I do have more questions, but I'm going to park them for later on. We'll just try and knock these off very quickly. So who's your favorite comic book artist and why? That's from Nupur Jain.
Okay. Favorite comic book artist. I don't really have favorites, but I have some favorite books. And there's uh
So actually, sorry, I'm going to
I'm
jump in
sure
here. I
people.
was actually wanted to ask you that question. You mentioned that there's less than 10 good comics in India. Can you share the
Yeah,
list of what you think are good Indian comics? If not now, you can email them to me because I think that will be
yeah,
very
sure.
useful for people in this group to read, right? So if you can share that with me,
Yeah,
that would be great. We'll move to the
yeah,
next
sure.
question. Do
I'll
you have
send
any
it to you.
suggestions on how to bridge fragments of writing? This is what you had mentioned earlier.
How to bridge fragments of writing?
Like
What
you
do you
had
mean?
mentioned that, when you write a comic book, there are frames and then there is a disconnect. So you have to create a connection. So I guess the questions around that.
Um, I I just think it's about a lot of rewriting. For me, writing is a lot of rewriting,
Yeah.
and also there's a lot of just giving it some gap. That's what worked for me. Just whatever I've written, I needed to give it some gap before I went back to it, before
Yeah.
I could see what was working and what wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Cool.
also
Suhani.
simplifying. Like I remember that I was, whenever I was trying to say too much is when I was getting in trouble.
Okay.
And when I simplify things, it didn't just simplify it for the reader, it simplified it in my head also, because in my head also I became a little bit clearer as to what am I trying to say. Because
Great.
normally I when I would look back, I would be unsure that what am I trying to say, even I'm not sure. And so
Nice.
simplifying, I think, helped me a lot.
That's very interesting. Yeah, but I think that makes a lot of
Mm.
sense. Suhani has a question. Hi, do you use Procreate or any other software for your illustrations, or are they scanned hand drawings?
So the first half of the book is scanned hand drawings. The second half of the book is all digital Procreate on an iPad. Yeah.
Cool. Cool. So I didn't tell the difference when I saw the book. I couldn't tell when it switched from one to the other. Can you?
Yeah. Um, Not really, actually. I can't
Okay.
pinpoint the pages, but it's basically the same thing. It's just, I mean, you're doing it by hand anyway. It's
Yeah.
just a different pen. You just
Right.
picked a different pen.
Okay, cool. Yeah, this next one's interesting. How did you decide on the subject and how did you develop the story?
The subject happened because I was in Ahmedabad for my MBA, and one day I was free, and my friends were like, "Let's go to this place called Lothal." It's like, "What is Lothal?" He said, "It's from the Indus Valley times." It's like, "Oh, isn't that when the same time as when the pyramids were being built?" Like, yeah. At that time, I didn't really know much about it. So I went to Lothal almost expecting to see pyramids and something very impressive. But what I found was very disappointing. It's just some few bricks here and there and some pottery. It's like this boring. And then I was like, why is it considered one of the great ancient civilizations? And I started researching and I found that it's just absolutely fascinating. It's one of the most unique ancient civilizations that, and I was wondering, like, why don't we know about this? And when I got interested and I was started researching, I wanted to read a book, a graphic novel, for example, that would show me things and that would tell me things, but it didn't exist. So I was like, all right, I'll create it.
Cool. So that actually I want to bring in my next question because it's linked to this one. So what is next? And that was also a question Chitra has asked. What would you do differently if you had to do it again, or for your next book? So what is your next project? If you have one, do you already have one in mind, or are you just chilling for?
Yeah. No,
Okay.
no, no. I have. Yeah. If I stop, I think I'm just not gonna start again. So I have to just keep going.
Okay.
Um, I'm working on some. I'm working on slightly different things now. Basically, it's comics, same illustration and words combined to tell stories, but it's not for the page anymore. It's for a screen.
Oh,
So it's going to be digital. It's going to be on the screen, and it's gonna have the same format, comics format, but it's gonna have some sounds also and music.
oh, nice.
It's still gonna be a reading experience, not a watching experience, because I
Oh,
want to keep it that. I don't want it to be a passive press play and just sit back and watch type thing. I want it to be an active. Like in reading, I love the fact that you move at your own pace. You can read and reread a page as many times as you want, or you can read something fast, something slow. So that format will stay the same. It'll be reading, but it just might have some ambient sounds and stuff like that. And it's in fact it's set in Kumau.
oh,
Yeah,
nice. You welcome
yeah.
to come to the retreat and do something there if you want.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah, yeah, deal.
Yeah.
Chitra, so coming back to the question. So first, Mridu has a question. How did you research about the Indus Valley civilization? I've not talked about your co-author, but there is a co-author who's an expert on the topic as well. So yeah, and then we'll come to
Yeah.
Chitra's question, which was what would you do differently?
So in terms of research, I basically dove in head first. I had no idea what I was doing, but like I'm not a researcher, I'm not a historian by training, so I didn't really know what I was doing. So I just kind of haphazardly started it and kind of figured my way through the process. And I went to a lot of basically textbooks, a lot of academic journals, and a lot of excavation reports and stuff like that. And I was surprised by how much there is out there and how outdated our popular perception on the Indus Valley was. There's so much new work that had been done. And I had a friend who's a PhD student in archaeology, and he was excavating one of the sites, Rakhigadi in Haryana. So I constantly kept asking him for advice and the right journals, and I used to ask him to send me like articles and books and stuff that, and I used to keep bouncing ideas off of him. That, does this work? Is this an accepted thing in the field? Like, do a lot of scholars believe this or that other conflicting point of view and stuff like that? So that's how I went about doing the research. And um, only when I had finished the first manuscript, which I sent to publishers also, did I send it to this professor whose work I had used. He's an American professor, Dr. Kenoyer, who has basically excavated the site of Harappa for 40 years. So I sent it to him saying like, hey, listen, I finished this manuscript. A lot of it is based on your work, and thank you for inspiring us, and thank you for all the work you've done. I would love to know what you think. And I wasn't really expecting to hear back, but he wrote back and he was like, yeah, it's really nice. I like the idea. There's a few issues here and there. If you can fix those, I think it'll be a great book. So I just asked him, hey, can you suggest someone who can help me fix these issues? And at which point he was like, I can help you, but it'll take some time and it'll take a lot of effort. I don't really want any money or anything, but I want like correct information to go out there. So if I'm gonna work with you, I'd like some credit. And I was more than happy to have him as a co-author. He's like, yeah, of course. So then he and I sat and worked for a good 5 6 months and reworked a lot of the stuff. Uh, and yeah,
So the
that's
total
how it.
time for this book was like what, 5 years?
Yeah, from start to finish, it was about 5 years.
That's a lot of work, man. That's like really deep. Very
Yeah, I
impressive.
mean, I wasn't working on it full time the whole 5 years because I started doing freelance work in the middle. But yeah, that's how much time it took,
Great.
and that's how much time it took to kind of. Uh,
The next question was, what would you do differently if you had to do it again?
mm, There's lots of things, but I know that if I could do it again, I would probably just do the same things. I would probably make the same mistakes. I think the only thing I could do differently maybe is have a little more belief from the beginning, because that belief had to come somewhere in the middle and through a lot of emotional and mental and I don't know, psychological struggle. And that's the hardest part that happened during the book. Like in the middle of it, I just basically gave up because I was like, I can't do this. I can't finish it. It's just too much work, too much writing, too much research. I don't even know what I'm doing. Nobody's gonna read this. It's looking so shoddy. The draft that I have, is anybody gonna want to read this? It sounds so boring. Is it even engaging? Everything. And I was looking at other people's drawings, and I was like, wow, these people are making great art. Who's gonna look at this stuff that I'm making? I'm not equipped to do this. Like there was too much of that chatter going on, and it took a while for me to learn how to deal with it. The chatter never quieted down, like it's still there, but now I have strategies to just make it go quiet and be like, okay, I see where you're coming from, but it's not important to think like this right now. And that belief that, well, even if my work is shit and nobody reads it, I'm going to do it anyway. I have to do this. So that took a while, and that's something I would do differently if I could do the whole book again. The rest, I mean, it's
Cool.
fine the way it is.
Yeah, there's more questions than we have time, but I'm
Yeah,
gonna
go on.
see if I can just sift through some of them. Research wala ho gaya. What would you do differently ho gaya. How far did you visualize your comic while writing the script for it?
Like the
Hmm.
visual part of it. Oh, yeah, I did it from the beginning. Like it was part of the process, and in fact, it was. I had scenes in my mind when I started the book. I was imagining, okay, what's the book that I want to read, and I had these certain things in my mind that, okay, this has to happen. Like for example, there's a famous dancing girl statue, and the dancing girl is like tiny. It's like literally this big. It's just 3-4 inches or something, and she's always shown from the front. And the whole sculpture actually is very finely done from the back side also. Like the way the hair and everything is done is it's really nice. So I had this thing in my head. At some point, she has to appear, and I'm going to show her from the back. And then I had this scene in my mind that, okay, I want one scene where I'm standing on a rooftop in Mohenjo-daro and looking at the whole city. That scene has to appear. So like that, there were some 7-8 different scenes that I knew had to appear, and then the narrative just kind of had to weave through them. The narrative was basically designed to connect those things. Um, so
Next
yeah, the
question.
visuals were pretty much part of the whole thing
Great,
from the
thanks.
beginning.
The next question, how do you compare your comic to Amar Chitra Katha comics? I don't know if you do.
I don't really compare.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cool. The next was a very product manager question. Did you,
Mhm.
no offense, KK, I know him. He's been at the retreat, so I can take some liberty. Did you define the target audience age in your mind while drawing the illustrations and writing the book? How did that influence your approach?
I did not. I was the target audience from day one. Like this was a book I was writing for myself. And again, this was one of those belief things where I was like, I like this topic. I want to see this, but nobody else is going to want to read this. But then I realized that I'm not that unique. I'm sure there's millions out there like me who have similar interests and like similar things. So I just kind of went in with that blind faith that I'll just write it for myself. I'll entertain myself. I'll put in things that I want to see, and then I'll hope that there's enough people out there who are
Hmm.
going to like it. And
Cool. The next
yeah,
question, that's kind of what I expected. Mridus is just a comment saying, "Wow, that's amazing. Look forward to reading your book." Himani has a question: how different is Panchatantra, the good old Indian comic book series, from all the new age comic books? Is it the script or the illustrations? What is the reason for growing popularity of the comic books? Is there growing popularity of comic books? Firstly, I don't know that, but assuming it is, so what is
I
your
think
answer?
so. I think so.
Okay, good.
I think growing popularity could just be because there's more people creating right now. There's still not enough. There's still like less than 10 who are doing it full time, probably. But before that, there was literally a handful, and it was just Amar Chitra Kathas and one or two others like Raj Comics and stuff that was doing stuff, and it was pretty much limited to that. Whereas now, right now, people are creating all kinds of things. There's a friend of mine who's working on a comic, which by the way, you guys should check out. It's online, it's a web comic, which is about his trip with 10 other people, starting from Cape Town and traveling all the way to Cairo. So basically crossing the whole of Africa with zero money. Um, and he's writing a comic about it. So yeah, it's called African Caravan. You should check it out. So there's all kinds of stuff happening. And I think that's why maybe it's growing in popularity. I don't know.
Cool, that's great. Next question is from Jessica. She's saying, growing up, I read Dennis the Menace, Garfield, Chacha Chaudhary, Shikari Shambhu, Tinkle, everything from Amar Chitra Katha, Tintin, and Archie comics. It's only now that I realize how mainstream it all was and targeted for children, teens. As a grown up, what are other Indian adult comics I can explore? Looking for recommendations. So that we already discussed, and he's going to share.
Yeah, I'll send you. I'll send a
Yeah,
list.
PS, I came across Chanda Mama. My grandfather used to read it when he was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that old, yeah. Maybe it's been around that long.
Maybe grandfather had kids very young.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. The rest are. Vibha's question was, I think this was not answered earlier. How did you construct story from the information that you had?
Mm.
So yeah, that's a good question actually, because you went from,
Yeah.
there is a story there now. It's not just a history textbook. There is a narrative and there is a narrator and all of that. So how did that
Yeah.
come about?
Yeah. That also came about in many layers. It didn't just spring into my head that this is what it's gonna be. It came about with like through this process of putting things down on paper and then reevaluating. Like I had actually made a 25-page comic first, which had a slightly different approach, a different narrator, different beginning, different storyline, which I abandoned at the end. Like I had finished 25 pages, and then that was supposed to be like my prototype almost. That I was like, I'll finish 25 pages, I'll send this out to publishers and get somebody to say yes. But at the end of it, I realized, okay, this. I mean, it was nice to have something in my hand and something to look at before I realize what's working and what's not. And then I realized, okay, I want to change the narrator to this, and then I wrote a whole nonfiction script, and then I realized that okay, where are the real people? The real people are missing. And then I added these like 3-4 page silent panels at the beginning of every chapter, where it's a fictionalized family living in those times 5,000 years ago, and it's basically their journey. And that kind of got added later, which a lot of people seem to be connecting with right now, like after the
Yeah,
book has
that
come
that
out.
was really nice because it wasn't just today's point of view. It was living that
Yeah,
life then. So that
yeah.
was very relevant.
And once I started putting that in, then even in the non-fiction parts where the narrator is walking around in the present day ruins, I could keep switching back and forth. Like when he's talking about what we know and how we know it, like we know that this happened because we see this and this and this evidence. At that point, I can sort of switch back for a few panels and show that family doing things, or the characters in the past doing things, which connects to what we see today. So that kind of gave me that idea. So the ideas kind of evolved over time, and they didn't just spring up in my head. I think this is one of the like most important things I've learned, even with drawing, even with writing, that things don't just like I used to imagine that when people write or draw whatever, they just think of something and they put it down on paper and it comes out well formed, you know. But I realized that that's not that's pretty much never the case. It's actually a process of several layers. You do something rough and you refine it, erase some, you make another layer on top of it, then you realize this works, that doesn't work, you make another layer on top of it, and in like 3-4 layers it's the final product that comes.
Nice. Nice.
So yeah.
So the next project that you're doing, this one is black and white. Are you thinking of that in color, or is that still going to
Yeah,
be
it's
black and white?
all color now. It's all color.
Oh, nice. Okay, cool. So the narrator in this book is actually you yourself, right? I mean, it looks like you. It sounds like
Yeah, a more idealized version of me. Younger, darker hair.
okay.
Yeah.
Um, Jessica has a question, and then Vidya has a question. So Jessica's question is: Good writing is measured in the quality of his show don't tell. Do you think comics will give the written form a run for their money in the future?
I at some point I did start believing this. I was totally sold on comics, and even now I'm totally sold on comics. I think it's just a lot more. It's just more similar to how we communicate in person. Because like when we're talking in person, we're not just saying words, right? We are using tone, we're using facial expressions, we're using body language, and we are being expressive in many non-verbal ways, which I thought comics could mimic and emulate a lot better than just the written word. But since then, I don't know. Now when I read books, sometimes I'm like, "Maybe it's just enough. It's just a different form of telling a story, and the kinds of things that get created in my head when I'm just reading words, there's a different pleasure to it. So I don't know if it'll give it a run for its money, but I do think it's a medium that's vastly underrepresented, and it's a medium, like comics is a medium that is so powerful. It's been limited to these children's stories and superhero stories and all this for far too long, and it's just a medium like any other. Like it's like films or documentaries or whatever. It's just a medium that you can pretty much tell any kind of story in, and it's a very powerful medium.
Yeah, great. Thanks so much. So, we are gonna stop our questions here, but I do want to kind of close with this whole thought that there is a lot of power to the whole idea of graphic novels or comics, the same thing. And even a book like Sapiens, you look at the book and it's daunting. It's 500-600 pages of text. Now they've taken Sapiens and made that into a graphic novel, and the moment you
Mhm.
do that, it just seems to be less work. It seems to be that much more accessible. You will get access to the same ideas. I'm sure you'll get the gist of that book without it being you know um, such a lot of it, without it looking like so much work. So I think
Yeah,
that's definitely a major quality. I mean, I would not have probably bought a book of on the people of the Indus if it had been just dry text, but because it's got pictures and I can actually see stuff, it's so much more accessible that I would actually go ahead and buy the comic and I want to gift this to the whole world. So I think there is something to be said for that for sure. I do want to,
yeah.
before we move on to talking about the tracker, we'll close the questions for now. But before I move on to the tracker, I do want to tell you guys again. So this thing, you have an age rating for it. It's 13 plus, correct, Nikhil?
Yeah. The
Yeah.
youngest reader has been like around 7, 8 years old, but they read it with their mother. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
would suggest like, yeah,
So if
12,
you want to
13
read it
plus.
to your kids, you want to buy it for yourself, it's fantastic gift idea. So that's why I've got all these copies sitting here. So definitely check it out for yourself. I mean, it's a great book per se. It also makes a lovely gift, and it's a age agnostic, gender agnostic gift, which you can give to pretty much everybody. So definitely do that. Should we move to talking about FDC? We are short on time. We have 8 minutes. Should we just talk about FDC? Nikhil, if you want to jump out, thanks so much, man. It was awesome having you. And
I
thank you
wouldn't
so much
mind
for taking
hanging
the
around.
time and waking up early. Get
Yeah,
some.
no problem. Yeah, thanks for inviting me. I hope it was useful and interesting for people.
I'll I'll let the audience raise their hands to confirm that. So I don't know if you can see the raised hands, but yeah,
Yeah, I
there's
can
lots
see
and lots
some.
of raised hands
Yeah.
that I can see. Everybody's hands are
Thank you.
raised. It's a really fun, lovely story, not just about the book and not just about the craft, but about you as a person. So definitely,
Thanks,
it
man.
was. Even I didn't know a lot of the things you told me. I think Vandita
Yeah.
knew some of those because she's my wife. Vandita is writing a book about people who are thoda hatke, thoda satkela, which includes me and her as well. And so she's
Mm.
interviewed Nikhil, so you'll find him in her book as well. But yeah, that's I think it's been awesome. So thank you so much. There's lots and lots of
Yeah,
thanks
thanks.
coming in the group also. Yeah,
I don't mind sticking around for a little bit if that's
please do,
okay.
please do.
Yeah.
So I was just looking at the tracker, and we just cracked 2 lakh words as a group. So 2 lakh words, matlab as a group, we've written about three novels now, and we have to shoot for some more. But and there is some. I'm going to share the screen if you guys don't mind. So I'm not picking on individual people, but I just want to get a sense of some of the high achievers and some of the people who are yet to start opening up their account. So there's folks who targets are really high, their numbers are 0. There's others whose targets are like Valley I was looking at has written some 30,000 words, and there's lots of people who've done like really large numbers. Here you've got 17,500, you've got 12,000, 30,000 here. Yeah, this is Valley Core. Another 11,000 Sagar, 26,000 Nupur. Nupur hasn't updated. Acha, 26,000 probably this month. Another 10,000 Ashwini. So some people are really on a roll, getting lots of words down, getting lots of writing done. And some of us are maybe, getting a little stuck somewhere. I don't know if the writing prompts are helping. I saw that the writing prompts are getting a lot of attention and people are sharing them. And every time somebody gets an opportunity instead of one, sometimes where that one prompt actually has 5 prompts in it, which is nice to see. I don't have a problem with that at all. You're giving people more choice. So anything anyone wants to share, anything anybody wants to chat about, we can discuss now. It's open house.
Nikhil, will you ever consider making zines in the future?
Jessica, can we just wrap up this if you don't mind? Yeah.
Yeah.
So we can you can answer that question in the chat if you have time, Nikhil.
Yeah, I'll
But
do that.
any questions about the FDC, because we want to close in 5 minutes. So any observations, people who are having a great run, Valley, tell us how you're doing, and what's driving you to hit 30,000 words in 18 days.
Hi, everyone. Actually, I think my commitment was too high and that got to me. I normally write 1,000 words every day as a exercise or whatever. But then I didn't realize I had decided to do 50,000. So I just upped it, writing twice a day, 1 hour each, so that I can do about 2,000. And of course, since I'm a pantser and the story's in my mind, it's easier to write. Otherwise, it would have been, I can't plot and plan. And if I did not have a story in my mind, I wouldn't have been able to write, very frankly. Yeah, thank you.
Chetan, we can't hear you.
Anyone else? You cannot hear me now, I'm hoping. Anyone else wants to share if you're feeling stuck or you're not being able to move forward? We can chat about that and see what we can do. Anybody at all, if you want to chat about it, it's up to you. In the meantime, Nikita has said, I'm going to stop ordering books on Amazon now. Don't stop ordering books per se. Replace Amazon with your local bookstore. We have lovely bookstores, and it would be a pity if they go away. So the reason to go to them is we still want to buy books, we still want to read books, we want to support the authors that we love, but we can get them through other means. And a lot of these bookstores will also give you discounts. I got all of these. I didn't even ask for a discount, but the store gave me a 15% discount. So yeah, but do that. That's a great thought. In the meantime, if anybody wants to add something, go for it. There's lots of comments coming in. I feel inspired after every Sunday session. Nupur is asked, roughly till when do we continue with the prompts? So we'll look at continuing with the prompts till the 31st of December. So we won't cut those short and keep them going till the 31st. All right, cool. Well, I don't see any further questions, so we can call it a day for now. If there's any, so since we have time, Nikhil, if you want to answer, are you open to writing e-zines in the future? That was Jessica's question. You've replied it. Okay, so he's saying, I don't understand the format for e-zines. I haven't really explored that format enough, perhaps. Cool. All right. So if you haven't updated the tracker, please do update the tracker. The goal of the FDC is to, of course, meet awesome people like Nikhil and like Arundhati last time around, but also to get your writing going. So definitely, try and move your writing forward. Try and get some of that word count going. And Nikhil, I meant it when I said you want to come over and hang out at the retreat for some time. Do that. Give us a
Yeah,
shout.
that would be lovely, man. And
Super.
to everyone, if you guys want to reach out and ask questions, please feel free. Maybe Chetan, you can give them my contact, like my email or
Yeah, it's
Instagram or
oddballcomics,
something. Yeah,
oddballcomics@gmail.com, right?
correct.
Yeah, I'll also put it in the WhatsApp group, but it's oddballcomics@gmail.com.
Yeah. Feel free to reach out. I think one of the best things that like we do in our comics community right now is we just share, work with each other, and kind of keep supporting each other, and just even if it's just purely emotional support or somebody needs feedback on a draft or something. So I think it's nice to connect with other people who are doing similar work. So please feel free to reach out for anything.
Nikhil,
Or
I just want to ask you if you have some kind of a flyer to share on my other WhatsApp group about your book.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, I can
So,
send you something.
on the retreat group.
yeah,
then-
Nikhil. So I will share the link and I will share some information. But Nikhil, if there is a prefab kind of communication about the book, WhatsApp it to me. I'll share it in the group. I'm sure lots of people will be curious, and please, I'll request all of you share it further. Let other people that you know also get the word out, because we really want to push this book now. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I'll share something with you, Chetan, and maybe we can
Great.
forward
All
it.
right. Thank you, folks.
That would be
Sunday
lovely.
night, 6 o'clock, and we have a lovely football match waiting for us. So
Yeah.
I'll catch up with you guys to next
Right.
Sunday, 5 o'clock. All right. Bye.
Take care, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Chetan.
Thanks again, Nikhil. Thanks. Again.
Yeah, no problem.